بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In this lesson, inshallah, we will explore those factors which assisted Hafiz ibn Hajar Raḥimahullāh in reaching such high statuses. We know that he was highly successful, and we therefore want to scrutinize his life to find the recipe for his success. There are certain things that assist a person when seeking knowledge. Like a poet says, أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن تفصيلها ببياني ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة وصحبة أستاذ وطول زمان. After analyzing the life of Hafiz ibn Hajar Raḥimahullāh, Allama Sakhawi Raḥimahullah discovered a few traits, some habits, different practices and various qualities that assisted him in excelling. We will go through these formulas which benefited him. By exploring the secrets of his success, we can insha'Allah inculcate the same in our lives and follow him. Allah Ta'ala will then bless us like how He blessed him, insha'Allah. Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah says, وَأَعَانَهُ عَلَى كُلِّ هَذَا أُمُورٌ يَسَّرَهَا اللَّهُ تَعَالَى لَهُ قَلَّ أَن تَجْتَمِعَ فِي غَيْرِهِ. There are various factors which assisted him to excel, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala made all these simple for him. It is very seldom that others can combine all of these. He then mentions all these factors which made it easy for Hafiz ibn Hajar Raḥimahullah to excel. So the first was his ability to read fast. When a person can read super fast with proper comprehension and understanding, then of course he will be able to complete more books, and in that way he will learn so much more. In recent times, we find so many articles and even dedicated courses on speed reading. Hafiz ibn Hajar Raḥimahullah was naturally blessed in this regard. To present some examples to exemplify at what speed he could read, he read the whole of Sunan ibn Majah in only 4 sittings. And he also read the entire Sahih Muslim in just 4 sittings. That too, he was reading to a teacher. If you can read ultra fast like this, you would manage to read so many books to different teachers, and you can get ijazah from so many more teachers. Even in Dawratul Ḥadīth, who reads? It is those who can read the fastest, but correctly. Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah says that it was not just Hafiz ibn Hajar Rahimahullah who managed to read the entire Sahih Muslim so quick. His teacher also accomplished this and read the entire Sahih Muslim to his teacher in just 3 days. Hafiz ibn Hajar Rahimahullah read Sunanul Kabir of Imam an-Nasa'i, which is in 12 volumes. So not the Mujtaba which we do in Darul Ulum. He read the Sunanul Kabir in 12 volumes. He read it in 10 sittings. Again, he read this to his teacher. So let me remind you that we are talking of reading with understanding and to a teacher. Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah says the quickest thing that he knows of is that Hafiz ibn Hajar Rahimahullah read the entire Al-Mu'jam al-Saghir of Imam Tabarani Rahimahullah between Dhuhr and Asr. So bear in mind, it is Asr according to Shafi'i time, which is much earlier. Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah initially learned that Allama Khatib Baghdadi read the whole Sahih al-Bukhari to the famous transmitter, the famous female transmitter who we spoke about in the last lesson, Al-Karima al-Marwaziyya Rahimallahu anha, in 1 day. So Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah asked Hafiz ibn Hajar Rahimahullah if he could do this. He wanted to know if Ibn Hajar could also recite the entire Sahih al-Bukhari in just 1 day. Ibn Hajar admitted that doing so in 1 day would be difficult, But then Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah said he later found that it was actually over 5 days in which Allama Khatib read Sahih al-Bukhari, and it was not in one day. والذي رأيته الآن في ترجمة الخطيب أنه قرأ في 5 أيام وأظنه صواب. So that was something that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah would easily manage to accomplish. It would be easy for him to read Sahih al-Bukhari in 5 days, and probably even quicker. Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah mentioned this to prove that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah was not outstripped by the fast readers of before. When Ibn Hajar rahimahullah was in Damascus in the year 802 Hijri, then over a period of 100 days, from the 21st of Ramadan until the end of Dhul Hijjah, he read over 18,000 pages. How did we get this figure? He read 450 ajza, and one juz is 40 pages. So 450 times 40. All this was whilst he was traveling. Bear in mind that he obviously went to Damascus for a reason, not just to sit and read the whole day. His objective was to attend lessons and meet the scholars of that area. So together with accomplishing his objective of traveling there, he still read so much. That was the first quality. The second quality was fast handwriting. Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah formally learnt the art of writing. On page 167 of Al-Jawahir wa Durar, if you have the copy you can follow, all the names of teachers who taught him to write are mentioned. Hence he could write at a speed and his handwriting would still be neat. It was because of this that he managed to write so many books. He could write a whole notebook in just half a day. Now considering that his handwriting was small, that is a lot. His notebook will equal to 2 notebooks of another person, and he would write this in just a half a day. He wrote the Taqyid of Ibn Nuqta in just 5 days. It was his habit to also write whilst traveling. In fact, he wrote the Nukhba, which we will inshallah be doing whilst traveling. In Isbal al-Matar, Amir al-San'ani says, وَبَعْدُ فَالنُّخْبَةُ فِي عِلْمِ الْأَثَرِ مُخْتَصَرٌ يَا حَبَّذَا مِن مُخْتَصَرٍ أَلَّفَهَا الْحَافِظُ فِي حَالِ السَّفَرِ وَهُوَ الشِّهَابُ بْنُ عَلِيِّ بْنِ حَجَرٍ. On the beginning of page 169 of Al-Jawahir wa Durar, a very important point is mentioned. وَكَانَ رَحِمَهُllāh لا تمنعه الكتابة عن فهم ما يسمعه من علم وحديث. Because of writing, he would not become distracted from listening and understanding what the teacher was saying. In fact, he would say, بل ربما أكون عند الكتابة أحضر بالا مني عند عدمها في بعض الأوقات. For us, the benefit we can take from this is that we should type fast. In our context, we should learn to type fast. The next was he had good company. Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah writes, منها الرفاق الذين كانوا غاية في الديانة والتواضع والاعتناء بالشأن والاهتمام بفنونه والبعد عن التوغل في الغل والحسد والكتمان وتكرر ذكر ما يقتضي الامتنان فذا يعين رفيقه نوبة بالقراءة ومرة بالكتابة وأخرى بالعارية ووقتا بالمذاكرة ومرة بالتنبيه على ما السلامة منه مختصة بالمعصومين والآخر يفعل مع رفيقه أيضا كذلك ويجمل كل واحد منهما الآخر بقلمه ولسانه ويوجه ما ظاهره القبيح من قول أو فعل بالتوجيه المرضي حتى يصرفه عما يخالفه ويثني من تأخرت وفاته على صاحبه الثناء الجميل وربما يرثيه إن أحسن ولتلبسهم بذلك كانت لهم جلالة ووجاهة وفيهم كثرة. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah had such noble company and such exemplary friends who reached the highest stage of piety and humility and dedicated themselves fully to attaining knowledge. They maintained extra caution to save themselves from jealousy and rivalry. Such company helps a person at times with reading and on other occasions with writing. They lend books to each other, and there is so much benefit even in their mutual discussions. In Mustadrak al-Hakim and Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah, it is mentioned, Al-Jalisu Salihu Khayrum min al-Wahda. A pious companion is better than being alone. The next quality was distancing himself from rulers. Ibn Hajar Raḥimahullāh would not care about sitting with rulers and high-profile leaders. It just wastes time, and even worse, spending time with them blackens one's heart. He was also very cautious to spend his time wisely. Ibn Hajar Raḥimahullah was very particular about spending every second of his wisely. Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah says, إنما كانت همته المطالعة والقراءة والسماع والعبادة والتصنيف والإفادة بحيث لم يكن يخلي لحظة من أوقاته عن شيء من ذلك حتى في حال أكله وتوجهه وهو سالك كما حكى لي ذلك بعض رفقته الذين كانوا معه في رحلته وإذا أراد الله أمرا هيأ أسبابه. He says that he spent his day researching or reading or in worship or writing or benefiting others, just so that not even 1 second was wasted. He tried his best to do something beneficial even whilst eating or walking or even on his travels. Allama Sakhawi says, as we have been informed by his companions who accompanied him on a journey. Thereafter, Allama Sakhawi says, when Allah Ta'ala wants something, then Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala makes the means. Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah says that he very frequently heard Ibn Hajar Rahimahullah saying, إِنَّنِي لَأَتَعَجَّبُ مِمَّنْ يَجْلِسُ خَالِيًا عَنِ الْإِشْتِغَالِ. He says, هَذَا أَوْ مَعْنَاهُ. It's a similar wording he would say very often. That I am shocked at those who sit around wasting time or just sit there being idle. One day, he went to Al-Madrasa Al-Mahmudiyah and he forgot the key. So he sent one student to the locksmith to quickly get a second key, and he engaged in prayer. When the door was opened, one of his students inquired that would it not have been easier to just send someone home to get the key? So he responded that this was faster. This was faster, and you will still get benefit from the additional key. On page 171, Allama Sakhawi Rahimahullah says that Ibn Hajar Rahimahullah had a small Quran and a masbaha, a tasbih, which he would carry with him. So you can remember this as proof of carrying a tasbih or carrying a masbaha. A master in Ḥadīth would carry one. Yet you have some people today claiming that it is a bid'ah. Today we have the Quran on our phones, isn't? And we also have electronic counters. So we can use these and emulate our pious predecessors. There are so many more instances mentioned here highlighting how he would guard every second, and also of how other scholars were so particular of their time. So please go through these pages when you have time, or rather make time, so that when reading how they valued their time, you can learn to use your time wisely. The next thing which assisted him was that his teachers had great regard for him. His teachers would always welcome him and make time for him. He in turn would use this to his advantage. On page 172, it is stated how when one of his teachers, Allama al-Burhan al-Tanuhi Rahimahullah, became ill, Ibn Hajar Rahimahullah would spend most of his day with him. And he continued going to him for full 3 years. ووصل عليه بالإجازة شيئا كثيرا وانتفع صاحب الترجمة ببركته ودعائه كثيرا. One important factor that Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah did not mention in this chapter, but rather he mentioned it much later, is that the wife of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah was also a scholar. He mentioned he married Uns Khatun rahimahullah, and she had ijazah from some of the leading shuyukh of the time. Amongst others, she had ijazah from Allama Iraqi, from Allama Ala'i, from Abu Huraira, the son of Imam Dhahabi rahimahullah, and from many others. Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah and others all got ijazah from her. In passing, the amazing thing is that she accomplished all these in spite of having so many children. واستولدها صاحب الترجمة عدة أولاد زين خاتون وفرحة وغالية ورابعة وفاطمة. These are the children who survived. She had to go through more pregnancies and experienced miscarriages. ولم تأتي بذكر قط. نعم كانت تجيء بين كل بطنين بسقط ذكرا. She did not give birth to a male. Yes, between every 2 pregnancies, she would carry a male, but then she would have a miscarriage. So in spite of all these, she still managed to accomplish so much. On page 175, there is an interesting chapter, Barakat ibn Hajar, the blessings of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. This is so true that the pious are a means of attracting divine blessings. There is so much to discuss on Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, but we will only dedicate this session to his biography. In the next lesson, we need to move on. Focusing on his teaching career, he started to teach in 808 Hijri. The first book he taught was Al-Imta' bil-Arba'in al-Mutabayinah bi-Shart al-Sama'. Now we know him as a muhaddith, but we mentioned how he studied in so many other fields and how he excelled. He also contributed to those fields by teaching. For example, he taught tafsir in a madrasa Hasaniyah and in Al-Qubba Al-Mansuriyah. He also taught Shafi fiqh in madrasa Shaykhuniyah. To understand how proficient Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah was in all these other sciences too, Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah says, إليه المنتهى في إلقاء الدروس على طريقة لم أرى نظيره فيها. He was unmatched in the way he delivered his lessons. Another point to note is that he taught at numerous different institutes. At many institutes, he taught just for a short while as a guest. His main place of teaching was at a khanqah, the Sufi lodge of the Baybas. This proves that together with the vast knowledge that he had, he was still concerned about his spirituality and rectification. And he put emphasis on private worship and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before teaching any lesson, he would read Surah Al-A'la, Sabbih Isma Rabbika Al-A'la. Then he would send salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he would make dua for himself, for his students, and for the scholars of the past. He most likely chose to recite Surah Al-A'la due to the 6th verse, سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى. In spite of how much he learned, he knew that he was fully dependent upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He would say, يا رب ذكرني فقد قدرتني من يوم مبدأ إنشائي الساعة وإذا خطوت إلى الخطأ فاغفر لي كرما فأنت خلقتني خطاء. With regards to his publications, we discussed earlier how he was blessed with fast handwriting. Due to this, he could write many books. Allama Suyuti rahimahullah says that he wrote 200 books. If you count everything, including the little booklets, it would go to over 270. Just as he taught different sciences, he also wrote on various subjects. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave acceptance to his books. انتشرت مصنفاته في حياته وتهادتها الملوك. His books spread in his life, and kings which would exchange them as gifts. In spite of all that, Allama Sakhawi rahimahullah quotes him as saying, لست راضيا عن شيء من تصانيفي لأني عملتها في ابتداء الأمر. That I am not too pleased with my books because I wrote them in my early days. ثم لم يتهيأ لي من يحررها معي. I have not found any person to go through them with me. But there are a few exceptions. This is besides Sharh al-Bukhari, Hudassari, likewise the commentary of Bukhari, Fath al-Bari, and Al-Mushtabih, Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, and Lisan al-Mizan. And he would say, وأما سائر المجموعات فهي كثيرة العدد واهية العدد ضعيفة القوى ظامئة الروى ولكنها كما قال بعض الحفاظ من أهل المئة الخامسة وما لي فيه سوى أنني أراه هوى وافق المقصد وأرجو الثواب بكتب الصلاة على السيد المصطفى أحمد. The least benefit I can get from my books is that I wrote salutations, in quoting the Ḥadīth, writing sallallahu alayhi wasallam. At least I am passing salutations, not because of my greatness, but because of the greatness of passing salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, I would derive benefit. This was obviously due to his humility. To understand the worth of his books, just know that even experts continue to benefit from all his books. Imagine if he did get a chance to go through his books again, how much more valuable they would be then. Allama Sakhawi rahmallah says that I found him at other times also praising two other books of his, Takhliq and Nukhba. Then even though he dedicated so much time to ilm, he would still devote a lot of time to worship. He would remain in worship daily from tahajjud till ishraq, from pre-dawn till after sunrise. And after the maghrib prayer, he would pray long rakats of nafil prayer. He would also respond to 30 queries each day. That means he would write 30 fatwas each day. Those of you who are in the field of ifta, you know that this is no easy task, because obviously a person has to have knowledge and understanding of the ruling before he can issue the fatwa. If he does not know the answer, then he needs more time for research. He was also a judge, a qadi, and hence he would have to spend some time each day at court attending to legal issues. With his academic mind and busy schedule, he did not lose touch with the general public. He was the khatib at Jami' al-Azhar and would deliver general lessons in Jami' Amr ibn al-As. Jami' Amr ibn al-As was built in the year 21 Hijri. From the name you can guess which Sahabi built it. And it is our greatest proof to show how much emphasis was put in the time of the companions to ensure that the masjid faces the Kaaba directly. Not just the direction of the Kaaba, but the actual Kaaba. In Al-Khitat al-Marwaziyya in volume 4 on page 7, it is stated that 80 companions worked out the Qibla of Jami' Amr ibn al-As. And that is why today, if you draw a straight line from the masjid to the Kaaba, you will find that it is spot on. Nevertheless, not to digress, in the year 852 Hijri, he became critically ill, but he would still complete his duties diligently, and he would conceal his sickness from the people. Ultimately, it became too obvious, and everyone realized that his health is deteriorating each day. It continued to deteriorate until finally, in Dhul Hijjah, he took his last breath, and we lost this giant of Islam. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. There are differences regarding the exact date of Dhul Hijjah. Allama Sakhawi Raḥimahullāh and Allama Suyuti Raḥimahullāh claimed that it was on the 18th of Dhul Hijjah. In Badā'i'ud Duhur, Ibn Iyas says that it was on the 19th of Dhul Hijjah. In Lahdul Al-Hadh, it is mentioned that it was on the 28th of Dhul Hijjah. So in that time, they never used to have birth certificates. So it's not because they would have moon crisis, moon wars like how we have today. It was because they didn't have death certificates, so the exact date would then have to be estimated. Nevertheless, irrespective of which date it was, at the end of 852 Hijri, this world lost a great scholar. Ibn Tulun Raḥimahullah said the following lines of poetry that are so true. هيهات أن يأتي الزمان بمثله إن الزمان بمثله لبخيل أقم النساء فما يلدن شبيهه إن النساء بمثله لعقيم. From all that we discussed about him, there are few important things to keep in mind which had a direct impact on the text. He wrote this book in the beginning of the 9th century. We need to understand the social climate of the time because that has a great impact on the outlook of a person and will obviously affect his publications. When we study the books of his contemporaries who also lived in the same region as him, we find that the Hanafis and Shafis were at loggerheads with each other. Each was trying to prove that his madhab is better. This created within the author the mindset that he always needs to defend his madhab. He was definitely affected by this, but probably due to his travels, he became a bit more open-minded and accommodating compared to others. Hence, he taught at a Hanafi madrasa and had many Hanafi students. He even wrote ad-Diraya, which is all about showing proofs from a Ḥadīth for the Hanafi madhab. But even after all that, he was always more loyal to the Shafi'i madhab. Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri Raḥimahullah mentions that a Hanafi should never think that Allama Ibn Hajar had the interest of the Hanafi madhab at heart. Rather, he was a Shafi'i and a defender of his madhab. Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri first speaks of the moderation of Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, and thereafter he mentions بخلاف ibn Hajar Raḥimahullāh ta'ala, that Ibn Hajar Raḥimahullah did not have this type of moderation like what Ibn Daqiq al-Eid had. فإنه لا ريب أنه حافظ يتكلم في غاية المتانة والتيقظ. We are not denying he was a great hafiz and he spoke with great precision, he knew what he was talking. لكنه لا يريد أن ينتفع الحنفية من كلامه ولو بجناح بعوضة فإن حصل فذلك بلا قصد منه. He says that he did not want to benefit the Hanafis at all, and if it did happen, then it happened unintentionally. This is the analysis of Mullah Anwar Shah Kashmiri. He mentions it in Faydul Bari, his commentary of Sahih al-Bukhari. It's in volume 1 on page 107. Therefore, we understand that he wrote his Nuzha from a Shafi'i perspective. We need to keep this point in mind. Secondly, regarding ulumul hadith, during his era, many scholars just followed the nomenclature and explanations issued by Allama Ibn Salah Raḥimahullah. Ibn Hajar Raḥimahullah also dedicated much of his time studying his books, but then took the liberty of differing with Allama Ibn Salah Raḥimahullah. As we go through the text, we will see how much he differs. With that, we will inshallah conclude this lesson. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب